Unit 140 Compound and Derivative Nouns. Reading and Recognizing. Така, нека да кажем основните неща по отношение на Compound Nouns and Derivative Nouns. Така, Derivative Nouns, they have suffixes. Okay? Така, производните съществителни имена произлизат от дума с добавка на надставки и представки. Що се отнася до Compound Nouns, съставните такива, те се образуват от две или повече думи. Now, we have a text. Let's read it. Fingerprinting. Man has known for a long time that the ridges of his fingertips formed certain patterns. In fact, the Chinese used fingerprints for hundreds of years in various forms and for various purposes. But the value of fingerprints in detecting criminals was realized by science only in quite recent years. The first man to suggest that fingerprints be used to identify criminals was Dr. Henry Folds from England in 1880. In 1892, Sir Francis Galton, a noted English scientist, established the fact that no two fingerprints were alike. He was the first one to set up a collection of fingerprint records. The British government became interested in his theories and ordered a commission to study the area of using fingerprint system in the identification of criminals. One of the participants in this research project, Sir Edward Henry, later became head of Scotland Yard. Sir Henry devised a system of classifying and filing fingerprints. You can understand that without such a system, it would take very long to match up two sets of fingerprints, and in crime detection, speed is often very important. Now, compound nouns in this text are: the first one, fingertips. Okay, fingertips. Also, fingerprints. Okay, this is a word coming from two words. Okay. Fingerprint records. Okay. Nouns that come from more than one word. Okay, fingerprint records. Also, fingerprint system. Once again, this is a compound noun. Yes, it comes from fingerprint and system. Okay. A crime detection. Also, this is a compound noun. A crime detection. Okay. When we talk about derivative nouns, the words here are criminal. Well, the word is crime, and one who commits a crime is a criminal. Yes? Okay, here is the word. So, scientist. It's a derivative noun. It comes from science, scientist. Well, this is someone who is dealing with science. Also, collect is the verb, and we have a collection. Okay, adding here ion. This is the suffix that we add. Also, government. So it comes from the verb to govern, and we add ment, meant, government. Okay. Identification. Okay. It comes from the verb to identify, and identification is the noun. Also, participant. Okay. It comes from the verb to participate, and someone who participates is a participant. Okay, that's it. And this is our next text, Ancient American Civilizations. The most remarkable thing about the Asian American civilizations was their independent development. Hidden behind their oceans, they had grown from the simplest beginnings with little help from each other and probably none of importance from the Old World. Their people did not suspect that the rest of the world existed, and no hint of their existence had reached Europe or Asia. Their isolation was without parallel. All the European and Asian centers of civilization from Rome to Japan developed in direct or indirect contact with each other. Ideas, inventions, knowledge and goods circulated among them for thousands of years, enriching the heritage of them all. Only Mexico and Peru remained outside the cultural pool, and this made their confrontation with the invading Spaniards in the first half of the 16th century an event unique in history. Never before had there been a meeting between men of different civilizations with no previous knowledge of each other. Never again could it happen on this earth. The result of the meeting was a disaster. In a few years, both Mexico and Peru collapsed into ruins. Millions of their people died of warfare and starvation, slavery, European diseases, and lack of will to live under foreign rulers. Behind them, they left deserted cities and uncultivated fields. Hundreds of years would have to pass before either country approached the population or prosperity it had enjoyed at the beginning of the 16th century. Okay, once again, let's look at the words in bold and which of the words are compound nouns and which of them are derivative nouns. Още веднъж нека да погледнем думите и кои от тях ще бъдат compound nouns and which of them will be derivative nouns. Кои от тях ще бъдат производни съществителни имена. Okay, when we talk about compound nouns, когато говорим за сложните съществителни имена, тези, които произлизат от повече от една дума, поглеждайки текста, имаме само една такава дума. Warfare. Okay, when we talk about compound nouns, we have warfare. Okay, it comes from war and fair. And when we talk about derivative nouns, и когато говорим за производните съществителни имена, okay, let's look at the words. Okay, civilization. It comes from civil. Yes. Okay, looking here. Civilization, it comes from civil. Okay, we have development, it comes from the verb to develop. Okay, beginnings. It comes from the verb to begin. Okay, importance, and it comes from the verb to import. Okay, existence, it comes from the verb to exist. Isolation, it comes from the verb to isolate. Okay, civilization once again. Inventions, it comes from the verb to invent. The next one, knowledge, it comes from the word to know. Okay, heritage, it comes from hair. Okay, confrontation comes from confront. Okay, here is the next one. Okay, meeting comes from the verb to meet. Okay, we said about warfare, it's a compound noun, comes from war and fair, and starvation comes from the verb to starve. Okay, we have two more. Population, Okay, the verb is to populate, and prosperity, it comes from the verb to prosper. Окей. Така, обърнете внимание на два израза, които имаме изключително хубави тук. Нещо, което е извън граматичните правила, които сме учили по отношение на словореда. Окей. Looking here. Those two sentences. Така, нека да обърнем внимание на тези две изречения. Never before had there been a meeting between men of different civilizations with no previous knowledge of each other. Какво прави впечатление тук? След never, една отрицателна дума, never before, ние имаме спомагателен глагол пред подлог. Never before had there been a meeting. В следващото изречение също. Never again could it happen on this earth. Обърнете внимание, че в този контекст можем да имаме тази идея, започвайки с негативна дума, дума, която носи една отрицателна идея, ние можем да имаме инверсия, без това да носи смисълът на въпрос. So, okay. This is our next exercise. We have to read the text. Okay. How I lay the table and the names of all the things I use. First, I spread the tablecloth and then I put out table mats to protect the table from hot plates and dishes. A small lat for each guest and larger ones for the hot dishes. I take out of the drawer in the sideboard all the cutlery, a fish knife and fork for the fish, a larger knife and fork for the meat, a small knife for the butter, and a fruit knife for the dessert. Then there is a pudding spoon and a fork for the sweet, and a soup spoon for the soup. I put the knives and the soup spoon on the right-hand side and the forks on the left, except the pudding spoon and fork, which I put across at the top. Then I put the serving spoons and forks, the carving knife and fork, the breadboard and the knife to cut the bread. And I sharpen the knife because Mr. Priestley hates blunt knives. On the left of each guest I put a small plate for bread, and on his right a wine glass if we are having wine. And in the middle of the table I put a jug of water with a few pieces of ice in it. Then I put out the table napkins for each guest, put the coffee cups and saucers with cream and brown sugar and coffee spoons on the tray, and I'm ready for the guests to come in. Now, let's look at the words that we use. Така, нека да погледнем думите, които използваме. Okay. Tablecloth. Okay, this is a compound noun. Okay. Table mats as well. This is a compound noun. Yes. Okay. Sideboard. Once again. Okay, here's the word sideboard. Okay. A compound noun. Okay. A fish knife. Okay. A fruit knife. Okay. So, a pudding spoon. A spoon that I use for the pudding. A soup spoon. Okay. So, on the right hand side, right hand, okay, once again a compound noun, a pudding spoon again, okay, serving spoons, spoons that you use for servings. Carving knife. Okay. Breadboard. Okay. Okay, then we have a wine glass. Yes. So then we have table napkins and coffee cups. Yes. And also coffee spoons. Okay, these are the compound nouns that we use here.